Oh. Now, I'm pleased to welcome our speakers today, and I hand over to Alex and Sarah to begin our workshop.
Good morning, everybody. So, as Jeremy said, thanks for your patience for waiting for us in the waiting room, and we're pleased to have you this morning here at our fourth annual Beyond IoT conference. So, this one is all about UX and unlocking the hidden value of UX to enhance your business. So, just in case none of you are familiar with UX, user experience is all about your users, and it's a design and research set of tools to improve your business and your software, very much based around technology. So Nimbus has been in this sphere for about 10 years. And in the last 3 years, really, our software remit has grown exponentially. And a huge part of software, exactly the foundation zone of software in the software lifecycle, is user experience design. So myself and Sarah are part of the UX team. We do a different form of UX. It's very much user facing, very much based on direct experience with your user and talking to your user. There's another part of our UX team, and they do a more Harvard-based design thinking model. So we're able to offer all these services to our clients. So what really is UX? So sorry, there's our user team. So you can see myself, Alex Joyce. I'm the business development manager, as well as managing our UX stream, and Sarah. Yeah, Sarah's also one of our UX researchers and designers. So just to take you through what we were talking about there, what user experience is. So you have three basic elements. Like, you have more, but this is the most basic model I can really give to people to help you understand. So in your business, you have three main things, right? You have clients, who are your users. You have your business, which is partly you and partly, the processes in your business. And then you have the technology, and the technology is the medium through which everything is tied together and presented as your business offering to your users. But one of the key hidden things is unlocking the user's desirability, because if your product or your service isn't desirable or isn't addressing a pain point in the minds or lives of the users, you're not going to have much of a business. In fact, it's why about 90% of startups fail, is because their users don't have a big enough desire for their product. Your business has to be viable. That comes financially and, both from your own time. Financially, if you have this massive project and you don't have the means to finance it, you have to make it viable by doing it in small steps. So UX considers all of these things. And the technology solution has to be right for your user. So it has to be right in their minds, in their mind maps, and addressing their basic needs. So let's move on to the next slide there, Sarah. Thank you.
Yep.
Brilliant. So just giving you another little background, and these are some kind of real businessy terms that we use. But this TRL, I don't know, have you come across it before, but TRL is technology readiness level. And it is exactly that. It dictates where on a scale your technology is. It's very, very handy. And you'll hear a lot of investors talk about TRL because it's a handy scale to understand where an entrepreneur or business is at. So if they are at 1, they have just a basic idea. If they're at 5, you know, that they've done some initial testing with it, or they may have a system that's working already. It might be TRL 9, but they're looking for, you know, to refine it and to improve it. So the TRL scale is really, really important when it comes to UX and understanding where a client is. So let's expand on that a little bit. Thanks, Sarah. On to the next one. Brilliant. So we have 3 main types of clientele within our remit at Nimbus. So the first type are entrepreneurs, and initially in the first, I suppose, 10 years of Nimbus, that it was all our entrepreneurs and startups, and they had basic ideas and not much done other than the basic ideas. So they would have been, you know, kind of TRL level 1 or TRL level 3. Recently, we've started to garner more SMEs. So they have an established process. They usually have an existing piece of software that, you know, they want to improve, or it hasn't been, you know, onboarded properly, or hasn't been tested properly. So we have clients like that. Or they might have jumped too soon into development, which is a really common thing, and they're pulling it back, you know, for us to help them with their UX end of it, their user end of it. Or we might have larger, later stage corporate organizations who actually do have a piece of software and it's running quite well, but they just want to improve it, or they want to, you know, make it more functional for their users. So within those 3, you can move on to the next slide there. Within those 3, we have the tools of UX, and we use these tools to unlock the hidden value. And the hidden value, as we said, you know, is what really, you know, the users want, what is desirable to those users, what works for your business. So we use a number of tools, but really the core of UX is your user research, and we invariably start there. And user research means that, you know, we conduct interviews or something called contextual analysis to really understand and unlock what your users want, how they're getting on with, you know, the current process, and, you know, to improve that. Stakeholder interviews is more about your business. It's about you as the stakeholder, or your stakeholder is your team. And you know, very often people just go into a business and they don't really understand their goals and their motivations. So, you know, you want it to be the business to be able to achieve those goals and motivations for you, as well as address the user needs. So we delve down into you as the stakeholder, your needs. Usually, so there are very preliminary ways of starting out our user research. And then we move on to something called prototyping or wireframing. Wireframes are just a mock-up. They're just like a drawing. It can be varying levels of fidelity for your prototype or for your process or your service. So we would design these and test them, because this is a really cheap way, fast and efficient, of putting together a business offering for your users without jumping into development. And this is kind of why UX has sprung up. It's because developers love to develop and get their business up and going and, you know, be coding, but that is really expensive and it's hard to reverse. So there's ways of doing this really, really cheaply and efficiently. And yeah, UX is one of those things. So then moving on to the second type of client are SMEs, the ones who are a little bit more established, who have done exactly that, kind of jumped into development a bit too quickly without understanding, you know, the key user research, like who are those users? What do they want? What are their pain points? What are their mental models? And we address all these things. And then usually when some client has a piece of software to present to us, we will do something called usability testing. When I was studying UX, this was the kind of key tool to use because you get user feedback so quickly, and you're presenting your solution in front of those users in a very structured way and testing the usability of it to see, does it work? Does it address what they're looking for? Does it address their pain points, their needs, or their goals? And then when we find out if it does, we don't do too much with it. But if it doesn't really address those needs, we will do a redesign. And then we will validate those new designs through another process of user testing before moving on to, something like customer journey mapping or something. So this is all really in the early stages of your software and your product life cycle, and very, very important. Lastly, what we will do with the larger, more established businesses, they usually come to us with pieces of software that that they can be doing quite well with, but they want to tweak them, and UX is and software, it's all a process of tweaking and iterating all the time. So A/B testing is testing two ideas. So I have one really great idea, and this side maybe to incorporate another feature, and this B is another feature maybe that will streamline a process. So you can test those separately. And then you can measure either through your Google Analytics or again through just basic user feedback how each of those work, and whichever one is better, you can allow to go forward with that. And that's a really key tool in user experience design. Again, usability testing, which is formalized testing of a software or technology, and we always use this to reinform a redesign. Just to help improve the process or improve the aesthetic of your web service or your software. And, that comes part and parcel of UI design. So we have a team of UI designers as well at Nimbus. So next, please, Sarah. So we're just going to go through a few examples now of those key clients of ours. So as we said, we have the TRL level 1 to 3, which is startups coming to us with an idea. And one of our main clients here was a really great client for us for a few years. Is successfully selling his software now, but he came to us with just an idea in his mind at TRL level 1. And what he noticed was that he was teaching accountants on a business mentorship course, and they could not grasp the double entry bookkeeping system. So he just wanted to make that happen with technology more smoothly, and wanted to use UX to inform that process. So Sarah, can you take us through our case study of bingbong.ie, please?
No bother, thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
So to kind of a more fleshed out version of that. So part of this was helping our client obtaining funding from Enterprise Ireland, something that you, Alex, are very adept at. So that was kind of one part of what we were helping him with. We also conducted a stakeholder workshop with this client, like you kind of described earlier, to kind of map out his own vision for the product. So what he was hoping to kind of get out of it, and what his personal goals were for the business, as well as to explore his understanding of his own users and what their needs and processes currently were. So based on this, we worked on like a next iteration of the client's wireframes, and these were handed over to the development team. Our role here really was, to guide friends moving up to move forward with something concrete. So just to give kind of some examples of this, usually when we're tasked with something like this, redesigning a UI or creating a UI from scratch, we'll start on paper. So these, with sketches such as the ones that you kind of see here. So this will kind of help us map out the content, where it should be placed, how it all relates to each other. And we can do this really quickly, really collaboratively, and really cheaply, most importantly. So these are just some examples of the types of sketches that we'd use for this kind of UI design. And now move on the slide. So then once we are kind of happy with what we have on paper, we'll move on to digital design. So we'll usually go through a couple of iterations here as well. So you can see here, these are two versions of kind of the same homepage that we would have developed for bingbong.ie. So, the focus being on kind of improving design each time, making the content flow more smoothly and relate to each other more in a way that would make more sense, because our focus is really on staying within those user requirements that would have been defined, I suppose, in the research. So the next, we'll just give them an introduction now.
So one of our SME clients recent years, you might have come across this piece of software. It's doing quite well now. It's called SmartRoutes. SmartRoutes had, like, just as the AIR codes became widely released in Ireland, they were the only routing software who actually included, or they were the first routing software to include the AIR codes. So really they came to the business in at the perfect moment, but they were really having trouble onboarding, and onboarding means trying to get users on board to be familiar and use your software. So they came to us scratching their heads about that, and myself and Sarah and another one of our researchers, Michelle, tackled that one. Sarah, you can go into it there in a little bit more detail for our audience.
No bother. So, like the goal here was, quite specific. They wanted to improve their onboarding process. So our approach really was to try and uncover issues specifically around this process using usability testing. So this is kind of the most appropriate tool to use here. And then we were able to use that research to make recommendations for the client on how to improve this process using both wireframing and findings. This was the first step in our work for SmartRoutes. So we have a fairly standard process that we'll use for usability testing software, and it involves providing users with a task list to complete with the software. And then we ask them to think aloud while they're doing so, to kind of vocalize their thoughts as they're going along, as this, it's a great way of getting insight into what, people's expectations are for that software, where they're getting confused, and like where those breakdowns in communication or understanding are happening between what they're expecting to see in the software and what the software is actually presenting them. Test that we would have done with SmartRoutes. So what we'll usually do is we'll screen record as people are working through these tasks, and we'll audio record them as they're talking through them as well. And this lets us, collect and analyze metrics such as how many clicks it took a user to get from point A to point B, for instance, or how much time they'll spend on a certain task. We'll also collect qualitative data as well during the tasks, such as, users, expressions of, frustration, or, oh, I was expecting to see X here, but it's actually Y, things like that. And it lets us really zero in on where kind of those breakdowns of understanding are happening. We can kind of analyze the entire process in this way then. So then, for an output for SmartRoutes, we provided them with kind of a redesigned UI based around their onboarding process, based on the findings that came out of our usability testing. So we were able to suggest solutions to kind of user concerns and issues that were identified in the tests in a very visual way. And then these wireframes were accompanied by a report, which would have documented all of our research, and stuff would have been put in there as well, so that SmartRoutes were able to kind of look down the line and see exactly where kind of the issues were arising for their users. And then we would have also provided them with recommendations on how to kind of overcome some of these issues and how to move forward with improving their process. So the last client that we're going to talk about is Currencyfare. So I'll just let Alex give them an intro.
So yeah, back to me. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Very interesting there. So Currencyfare are one of these kind of larger, more established firms, and they have a very, very well-known piece of fintech software for exchange rates. But they came to us wanting to break a new market. And rather than rushing into it and, you know, making all the wrong decisions and making the wrong moves and not understanding that user, they decided to, you know, employ UX to uncover the key motivations of that target user. So Sarah can take you through now of the tools and processes we incorporated there to help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, so thanks, Alex. So like you were saying there, you know, our main focus here with Currency Fair was on helping. So our first step would have been to conduct what we call a competitive analysis from a very user-centered perspective. So, you know, we were looking at, you know, what offerings were their competitors offering to, you know, this particular user set? What trends were we seeing emerging in different kind of features and functionalities of these different software options that people have? You know, what were we seeing in this space? So after kind of, you know, documenting all this, we moved on to running user interviews with the target user group. So we, you know, we would have identified a number of different users that would have kind of given us a range of the types of users that exist in the market space that they were looking at moving into. Conducted a series of user interviews with these people, kind of analysed, coded up these interviews and presented our findings in the form of wireframes and a report. So the user interviews, so as I mentioned, you know, this would have been, I suppose, kind of the second step after the competitive analysis and the work that we did for Currency Fair. So this image here, this is an excerpt from the report that we would have provided to Currency Fair, and it gives an anonymized overview of each of the users. So we'll usually conduct approximately 5 interviews as part of a project like this. So 5 interviews might not seem like a lot, you know, when you're conducting research, but I suppose kind of, you know, 2 things to bear in mind is qualitative research, which generally requires, you know, a smaller user sample size than, you know, say if you're doing your big quantitative studies. And on top of that, when it comes to UX, there's a lot of research to show that, you know, if you kind of target the correct, you know, user group, 5 user interviews is generally enough to reveal the majority of, you know, user behaviors and pain points that you're kind of really interested in tapping into. So once you start moving beyond this number 5, you quickly reach what we call a saturation point. So it's where you start getting the same answers back again and again, and you're kind of, you know, it's kind of the law of diminishing returns. You're not getting any real new useful information back. And the same replies are recurring again and again. So 5 is kind of the number that we'll usually aim for, which kind of shows, you know, it is possible to get a lot of real valuable input from users without necessarily a lot of value with just a relatively small user group. So then based on kind of the competitive analysis and the user interviews that we did, we would have put forward a series of recommendations in the form of a redesigned UI, and was actually designed to our website at the time. So we were kind of really focused here on assimilating target user group that they were going after with their current design rather than completely redesigning it. So we can be very flexible in that way, and that, you know, we don't, you know, we're not completely changing everything for a client. We're not telling them to throw everything in the bin and start again. It's for any project. So, you know, as you can see, like there's many different UX requirements that, you know, clients will come to us with, and we've lots and lots of different research and design tools, you know, that we can kind of that are at our disposal to meet all of these different requirements for our clients.
Brilliant.
So,
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yes. So we're going to move on to the middle part of our workshop this morning. We have one of our startup entrepreneurs, Marie Toft, Marie is the CEO and founder of a piece of software called Emotionize. But Marie has had a very, very interesting background and career before software. She was in TV for about 20 years. So now working in software, and has employed our services in Nimbus within our UX team to improve and do some usability and user research on her product. So Sarah and Marie, I'm going to hand over to you guys now to do our client interview. So thank you very much. So just to say, anybody, if you've any questions or want to ask us anything, please write in the chat, and we can ask those at the end. Thanks a lot, guys. And now over to you, Marie and Sarah.
Thanks, Alex.
This morning, Marie. It's great to kind of have one of our clients on to give their perspective on things.
Great, thank you for inviting me.
So to begin, could you just kind of give us a bit about your background?
Of course, yes. So I started off I've worked in the media for a very long time. So I started off as a journalist working in news with the BBC in Dublin and Belfast, and I worked in news in a TV station called SBS Australia, which is kind of like the Channel 4 of Australia, and I worked in news there. And then I returned to Ireland and I got into documentary making, really. I set up my own production company. But then I'm originally from Cork and I was living in Dublin for a long time, and I wanted to get back to Cork. So I joined RTE then back in 2003, and I made lots of TV shows for them. So I started with a children's show called Satitude, a live television show that ran for a few years. And then I made lots of cookery shows. But the shows that that a lot of your attendees might know are, I made the John Creedon travelogue shows, so the Creedon's Wild Atlantic Way and Creedon's Epic East, but I also set up the Today Show with Maureen Dahi, which is now in its 9th season, and has been really performing a great public service remit throughout this pandemic. It's live on air every day for nearly 3 hours, and it's live from RTE Cork. So I have a lot of TV and journalistic experience. And then in 2017, I decided to do something completely different, and RTE were running a voluntary redundancy program. And so I decided to take it because I wanted to do something different. So I set up my own company called Emotionize, and it's still running, and it's a content creation and consultancy company. And the reason I called it Emotionize is because I did a lot of research, and recent advances in neuroscience have proven you don't remember content unless you connect emotionally with it. So that's what we do at Emotionize. We help clients create content that connects emotionally. And I developed a process called the Emotionize process. We've taken over 100 clients through this process. And what's really interesting is they always learn something very new about their own product, which is a real eureka moment for them, because they think they know everything. But in fact, when you bring them through the process, they discover things. They're nearly too close to their own their own service. And so this has been quite successful. And it's interesting, I was listening to the main stage this morning and Andrew Bickley, and really what I realized was I would love to digitize and scale this process. It's a targeted content creation process. It's only one of me. And I'm, as a consultant, I brought a lot of people through it. And I really wanted to offer this process to everybody who wants to create content. And it's a software program. And so that's how I ended up working with you. So I am at the early stages of digitizing and scaling the Emotionize process. It's a software process that will help people create far more emotionally engaging content, written content. Now, it's important I say this, it's written content I'm looking at as opposed to video. But yeah, so that's how I ended up where I am.
Yeah, it's been quite the career for you so far, Marie. Can you tell us, where did you come up with this idea for kind of your Emotionize process? Like, what was your inspiration, I suppose, to kind of move into this space or kind of come up with this, really, really interesting new way of kind of looking at writing content?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about that. And actually, I think an awful lot of it comes from another part of my career that I haven't said, which is teaching. I've taught an awful lot in my career. I actually lectured in Dublin City University in their communications department for 3 years in Dublin in media communication. Actually, Brian O'Donovan, the RTÉ Washington correspondent, is one of my ex-students, and a few other well-known people now. Yeah, he was. I taught him for 3 years. He studied media communications in DCU. Great guy and always really talented. And then I also actually taught in CIT for nearly 10 years, part-time. When I was working in RTE, I taught the broadcast module of the public relations diploma. So teaching has been a really important part of my life. And what I discovered when I work with clients is I always wanted to give them the skills. I always wanted to give for them to have a takeaway that I could go off and create the content for them. And I have done that a lot. And I continue to work with clients to create content for them. But actually what I wanted to do was create a process whereby they would now think about content creation in a completely different way. So for me, it was a merging of my content creation skills that I've developed over a few decades and my desire to allow people to be almost self-sufficient, to go off and do it on their own. So I think that's really where I developed the process.
Perfect. And I suppose it's a really interesting kind of move for you away from, I suppose, kind of, traditional media into kind of software. It's a brand new, I suppose, like brand new space.
It is very interesting. So I am currently on a New Frontiers program, which is run by Enterprise Ireland. It's a full-time program, and it's a 6-month program, and I'm 4 months into it, so I have 2 months remaining. And I have to say, I have learned more, I think, in the last 4 months, and even through working with both of you, than I have in the last 10 years. So I'm a content creation expert, but I'm not a technology expert, not at all. But it's something actually Alex said during one of the workshops that we've been doing. I have actually been helping viewers, stroke users, through a process all my life, really, by organizing content and in a certain way to keep the viewer or listener or reader as engaged as they possibly can. And what's fascinating about the UI UX process that I'm working on with you is that's for me the part that excites me the most, that creativity behind that process. It's really great. And it reminds me so much of the process that I've really been doing for years when it comes to setting up new TV shows. But I have to say, this technological world can be quite daunting. I'm being very honest with you. And, I'm in my 40s now, and it's a big change for me to kind of dip my toe into it. But it is so interesting. And the other lovely thing about it, I was talking to somebody about this recently, because I'm still involved in television. There's a series on at the moment, actually, on TG Cahir called Skelta Grona Heron, which is Ireland's Greatest Love Stories, which I do a lot of executive producing now. And I'm the executive producer of that. It's nice to keep your hand in television, actually. And I was talking to the producer of that, and I was telling him about this journey that I'm on. And I said, the lovely thing actually about this kind of tech startup space is how supportive it is. And I really mean that. It's really, every time I have reached out for help, it is always so forthcoming and so generous. And there's a lot of support in it. And there's a lot of support to, if people believe you have a good idea, which I'm very grateful that both New Frontiers and Nimbus have come on board with me. They really do everything they can to support you and help you make it happen. It's not an easy journey, no question. It's actually quite hard, but it's really rewarding, very rewarding.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's great as well. This kind of idea that you're finding it, like, support is there kind of when you need it, which is so important when you're kind of trying something completely new. Like, and can I ask, I suppose, thinking about UX, then when you kind of initially decided to kind of incorporate UX, research or design, why did you kind of think that was an important step, for your process? Like, what were you kind of, I suppose, what were your expectations going into it, or your hopes for kind of, incorporating this UX process into, your product developments?
Oh, Sarah, to be honest, it's absolutely vital. I am building a very sophisticated, expensive product. I am under no illusions. There's an element of machine learning in it. It's data driven. It's not going to be cheap. I've done my financials. I know where the pain points are. I could see them because as part of the work I'm doing with Emotionize, I've been talking to groups of people and doing presentations for the last nearly 2 years now. And there was such fear in every audience about content, such fear. And because of social media, everybody is now their own broadcaster and their own content producer. Every single one of us who has a business or a product or a service has to step up in a way that we have never had to do before. And there's huge freedom in that, but there's also a lot of skills that people simply don't have. So I saw where the pain point was, but it's one thing getting a sense of that and feeling that from an audience. And it's another thing going off and building a very expensive software product to fulfill that need. And this is where you've come in, and it's allowing me to test it in quite a safe space and without having to make a very big initial, investment effectively in building the software, so that we can start with and it's exactly like, like what was said at the start of this presentation, 90% of startups fail because the users don't want the product. So it's one thing thinking, well, I can see that pain point and I think people need this, and going off and spending, a few $100,000 building something. And it's another thing going, okay, well, I can see it, but let's really get under the hood of this now and see exactly where that is. And that's what UI UX is helping me with.
Yes, yeah, no, and when UX is doing its work, that's exactly what it's for. Yeah. And why did you initially kind of come to Nimbus? Like, why did you select Nimbus, I suppose, as your choice for kind of moving forward with this UX work?
Couple of reasons. So first of all, I'm not sure if people listening to this are aware of innovation vouchers. They're a fantastic support scheme from Enterprise Ireland, and that's helping fund my work with Nimbus. So as an entrepreneur and as a limited company, I am entitled to 2 of these innovation vouchers. So the work I'm doing with you is the first of those vouchers. That's the first thing. That's fantastic. It's €5,000 and it's funding this work. So when I came up with the idea to digitize and scale the Emotionize process, I'm not a technologist, I'm not a technology person, but I have a very good friend who is, her name is Katie Waring, and she has a company called Omco Software in Bantry. So since the summer, I've been working with Katie. So I'm a bit like, I come in and I go, can we do this? And she'll go, yeah, that'll be hard, but we can. So she has been a fantastic, support. And obviously it's, I've been paying her and I've been getting some grants towards all of the work she's done with me. And it was really an introduction from Katie with you before Christmas that started the ball rolling. And it's been a very strategic and a very fruitful partnership, I have to say. I'm delighted.
Yeah, and that was, I suppose, going to be my next question. If you wouldn't mind kind of talking a little bit about, what your experience with us has been so far, just so I suppose people can get an insight into, what it actually looks like to do UX work with Nimbus.
It's very good.
That would be great to hear your thoughts.
Of course, Sarah. You get the workshops I've been doing with you get really under the hood of, actually, it's kind of similar to the process I do myself. What are your real reasons for building this in the first place? Why are you doing this right now? That's really important. That's actually really important because, listen, there have been days, certainly in the autumn, where I thought I must be crazy, to do this. This is a big road to go down. And you really have to understand, why am I doing this? What is my actual motivation for this? It's fantastic to work with people who are so knowledgeable in the area and be able to explain a product to them, and for them to really understand it. That's been fantastic as well. It's a very supportive, like I said, a safe. I recently finished a HDIP in UCC in psychotherapy, and I'm very much into this safe space, this space where you can just throw stuff out there and you're not afraid of maybe seeming foolish or seeming, ignorant. And you can just go, this is what I really want, and to see where those ideas land. And in fact, actually, Google have done an awful lot of research on this, and this psychological safety is huge for innovation. It's vital people are, they can't speak freely and they can't really genuinely go, I don't know what that means, then they're not inclined to really, to be innovative. You need to be creative, and to be creative, you need to feel very secure and you need to feel very safe. Otherwise, you won't put your hand up, or you won't come up with an idea. So that gives it. I find working with both of you gives me that space as well. But it really, what I love about it is you keep coming back to the user. The user is absolutely pivotal. So it's not just about me and my dream and my process, and I think everybody needs to do this. You keep coming back to, look, if we take them here, what will happen next? And it's that independence of thought, because we're all all of us, and I see this working with my own clients, are too close sometimes to our ideas and our our passions. So it gives you that kind of independence of thought, very supportive independence, and it pushes the product on by going to the user and going, would you use this? Would you buy this?
Yes.
So me killing myself here in court. If no one's going to buy it, it's like, move on. So it's vital. It's just really important,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great to hear, that you're finding it, that, you are feeling kind of like supported and that, I suppose that's something Alex and I really, we see that as well. Like, it is so important to create a space where, people feel that they can say, I am not really understanding this, or like, I think this, but I'm not sure, and maybe we can go and investigate it more, and they're not feeling like they're going to be shot down with their ideas or anything like that. So it's great to hear, that you're kind of experiencing that. So and I suppose to kind of, for some people, UX is still a bit of a foggy term. It can be kind of, maybe it's something to do with software development, or maybe it's something to do with UI design, like when it really is just kind of, I suppose, about, like you say, keep bringing it back to the users. So, I suppose my question for you, like, is the name of our presentation here today, has there been any kind of hidden value for you in engaging with this UX process so far?
Oh gosh, absolutely. It's been vital for me because, like I said, when I signed up to do New Frontiers in September, all I had was an idea. It was an idea. I had seen the pain from the presentations and the workshops I'd been conducting, but it was still just an idea. Whereas since December, since I started working with you, it's suddenly moved. It is expedited very, very quickly, and it's become an idea. To now, Sarah, you were doing user testing last week on the user journey. So it's really important. I wouldn't be as developed as I am without the work with Nimbus. It's been very important for me in the sense that it's given me a lot of validation, actually. Your enthusiasm and your willingness and the speed with which you came on board has been very gratifying for me, because it's my idea, and I've been in lots of different careers in my life, and some work out and some don't, and I'm very much, this is an idea, I hope it works out. It may not work out, in which case I'll go and do something else. So when someone like you and Alex get excited about the idea and think, actually, we think we could do something with it, that's very psychologically important for me and validating. And you also suddenly feel, because this is the journey that I'm on, I am now starting to bring more and more people with me. It's just been me on my own thinking, I could do this now. I've been working with Katie as well. But, I know this is an ambitious, sophisticated product. I'm very excited about it. I think there's a need for it. And I know as I continue, I will bring more and more people with me. So no, definitely, it takes it to the next level. For me, that's what it's done for me. It's taken it to the next level.
Super. That's great to hear that, which is really, like, we both are, like, we love working on, like, because we have someone who has this, like, idea that it's like there's nothing, we can, like, come to you with kind of ideas of how we're going to test this and how we're going to move forward with this. So it's the exact type of project we get really excited about in this. So we're delighted we get the chance to work with you as well. So, thanks so much for talking with us today, Marie. It's been really great to hear about, the UX process from a client perspective you know, we can talk all day about what we like clients, you know, then that's, you know, it's all out the window. So thanks a million for joining us.
My pleasure, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Maria. Just echo that. Really interesting insights there about our process. I'm glad we're helping to bring on your business and it's working. So that's brilliant. So we've come to the final part now, and that's out to our audience for Q&A. So please write in the chat, and we can answer any of your questions on UX or our services here at Nimbus. I have one slide here that initially this morning my signal wasn't the best. It seems to be flying now, working really well. So I might just share our summary slide here. Is that possible? I make me co-host, yeah. So Sarah, if you just stop sharing there 1 second, we can just try this.
Was I sharing that whole time? Was I?
I'm not sure. It wasn't coming up for me, but I just wanted to share this for people now. You can let me know if this is working for you guys. It's just a very brief summary of that conversation.
Oh yeah, that's appearing now.
That's great. So yeah, just I have to come down to it. Here we go. There we are. So our summary, just in finding the hidden value, guys, something that you all can do yourselves. And that's what your business is about. Your business is about, you know, helping that person that's sticking their hand in the pocket to pay for your service or your software, and that's your user. So, you know, iteration and improvement of your business and your software is always hinged on your user. You can make small changes, like we said, with the A/B testing, and you know, verify them by again engaging your user. You don't need us to do this, but certainly if you want to take on your software or your service a little bit more, like Marie has done, please speak to us. Our contact details are here. And any questions now, we'll open it out to you guys, and very much enthusiastic on hearing your questions.
Well, Alex, I was going to ask a question then. Is UX limited to software, or can it be applied to other customer-facing environments?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeremy, it can. I suppose originally UX is, I suppose, one of the fundamental steps in software development, but UX can be for any service whatsoever, anything that has a user or a customer at the end of it. We can delve into, you know, how those people are, you know, using your service. In fact, you know, even a piece we do technology to, you know, sensors, handheld devices. Back in the early days in Nimbus, we had these handsets that we were developing, and UX was still a key process of that. You know, to uncover how the users would interact with it, how they would like the media to be presented to them. Also, that we can use something called, you know, a business process model to examine how you're reaching your users. Is it the most efficient way? Is it the most efficient means of presenting your services to them, or find any, like what we call sticky bits, or just areas that the users aren't particularly fond of or just having trouble with. And UX is really just about smoothing them out, and you know, making your process more efficient. So yeah, it does. It applies to many different sectors. It's not only software.
Yeah. And then is UX? Do you think it's underused?
I think
the software
hard sell in the beginning. I think it really was. You know, because I think it's with technology. There's so many people in the technology area, and like if you look at an app to do, whatever, if you want to teach yourself a language on an app, you know, you literally have 10 different choices, and that's software for you. Like there's a choice, there's many choices for everything. So my point is, like, you know, entrepreneurs and businesses want to jump straight into that market, and grab onto those users and the market as quick as possible. But if you jump too quickly into development, like, you know, your whole business hinges on addressing these users. And even Marie alluded to it there, you know, you don't have a business. You actually don't unless you have someone who's willing to pay for it. And knowing those and being able to service that person or those people in the best way possible, and just, you know, uncovering their pain points to make them have the desirability to use your product is really key. There's two little kind of quotations I have. One is from Apple and Samsung, and they say every dollar spent on UX gives between $2 and $100 back to your business. So, you know, it really is key, and minds are open to it now. But also you have to have enough desirability in your product as well for UX to work and for the product to be saleable. And we say without any grit, so without that really understanding that problem, and it has to be, you know, like the pebble in your shoe, it has to really be annoying. So without any grit, you know, there's no pearl. So you really need that to understand that pain point, and businesses are coming around to that now and utilizing UX a lot more. Yeah, good question. Anyone else out there in the chat, please feel free to ask away. And if we've nothing, I suppose we could wrap up there and give people.
I think we have one come in, or we have a comment from Derek. We've learned to utilize UX at the beginning of our new project. So that is good.
Brilliant. Thanks, Derek. Derek's been one of our clients now for the last 2 years. Brilliant. Thank you, Derek. And certainly looking forward to working with you in 2021. That's great.
I'll just invite Derek there to ask him to unmute, and maybe he might like to expand on that. Hello, Derek.
I'm not hearing Derek. I don't know about.
No, I'm not hearing you, Derek, either.
Me neither.
I'm having mic troubles.
So please use our details down here on the screen. If you want to get in touch, you can drop me an email, or, you know, the phone number is there. You know, it's not only UX we offer. We have a team of software developers, and, you know, hardware is also one of the areas we cover. But I suppose one of the key areas that we do as well is funding, and that's generously supported by Enterprise Ireland. We do about 80 Enterprise Ireland funded projects a year, which is about 4 million in funding. So, you know, this makes a real difference to the lives of entrepreneurs to get their ideas out there. And it's certainly something we're very passionate about. So feel free to reach out to us, you know, about your business and about using UX and software to enhance that. A few more there. What's happening there?
So yeah, Derek's having trouble with his mic, but he said that they did not use UX on the previous project, and he feels that they should have.
They should have, yeah. That's there's always an insight in it. There literally always is. You know, and then yeah, had to address it in a second phase. That's typical. Yeah, that's a real typical part of our client's journey is, you know, they haven't used it to date and they want to refine and improve their process. So the second phase often has the user experience in it. And yeah, we're finding that's how our business in Nimbus has grown in the UX context is through that. You know, people just run into development and want the solution straight away, but they, as Derek says, you know, have to peel it back in the second phase and use our services, which is great, because we enjoy doing what we do, and we certainly enjoy helping our clients to achieve their goals too. So if you missed any of that, oh, for our next project, thanks to Sarah and Michelle. Oh yeah, thank you. So he has the learnings for the next project. Derek is saying there, thanks to Sarah and Michelle, who are part of our UX team. That's brilliant. Fix your mic. Thanks a lot, Derek. Appreciate the feedback. So just to tell you guys, we have a repeat of this at 12:15. Jeremy, am I correct? 12:15.
That's right, Alex. Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's any of this presentation you've missed, please feel free to join us at 12:15. And you know, as I said again, our details are below. We'd love to hear from you and help you, you know, take the next stages, next steps to bringing your product or software onto the next stage. So I'd say, is that a wrap for this one, guys?
Okay.
My thanks to Marie. Thank you very much for joining us, and I really appreciate your feedback there and Emotionize. I'm looking forward to working in 2021 on your product with you. And
absolutely looking forward to it.
Brilliant, Marie. Thank you, and thank you to Jeremy for being our moderator and host.
Yeah, no problem, Alex. Pleasure.
And thank you to Sarah, who's our brilliant UX researcher and designer, and my co-host on this. And we'll see you again at 12:15. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Oh. Right, guys. Yeah, I think we can.
Oh, they're gone.
That was okay.
There,
So,
yeah,
nice
I thought they'd stay on there, but thanks a million, Jeremy. I'll see you at 12:15.
Yeah, or maybe just slightly before it.
Yeah, 12:05.
Okay. Right. Perfect. Nice one.
Brilliant. Well done.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Thank
All right,
you.
nice
Great
one.
job.
Take it easy. Bye.